Hi, I'm Adam Lucente, and you're listening to the Al Monitor Brief. 2024 was an eventful and consequential year for the Middle East. The rebel victory against President Assad's forces in Syria sent shockwaves throughout the region. The conflict between Israel and Iran escalated into direct military confrontation, and both Hezbollah and Hamas sustained major losses in their conflict with Israel. In this episode, I am joined by Al Monitor's senior news editor Joyce Karam. We delve into what happened in Syria, the Israel-Iran conflict, the future of Lebanon, and the oft-overlooked war in Sudan. Hope you enjoy. Joyce, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Great to be with you, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again. So, I want to start the conversation with a recap of all that has happened this past year in the Middle East. What do you think were the most pivotal events in the region in 2024?
Well, to be honest with you, as somebody who's covered the region for over 2 decades, I don't recall seeing a year as hectic and as insane as 2024 in the Middle East. To think back, this is a year where started off with Iranian President Raisi dying in a crash. Then we've seen leaders of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, killed. We've seen Hezbollah's leader, who we all thought is invincible, Hassan Nasrallah, killed in the heart of Beirut. And then to cap it all off, the year ends with the Assad regime, of the 5.5 decades collapsing in Syria. So, by all standards, as a Middle Eastern, as a journalist, as an editor, as everything, this was just an exceptional year in news. The most pivotal event, I would say. It's hard to determine between Syria and Israel-Iran, but I have to say it's the Israel-Iran shadow confrontation, and how much headways has Israel made in that respect. You're seeing the Israelis, just targeting freely Yemen, Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, and you're seeing for the first time the Iranian leverage and influence in the region on the back foot. You're seeing Iran, for the first time since the Iraq War, having to be recalibrating, reorganizing its movements and its ranks to just catch a breath and try to gain momentum in the region.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned the Raisi helicopter crash because I saw someone post on X that this would have been a major event in any other year, but because of all that's happened in 2024, it feels like it's just a footnote, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. But you touched on this, but going on to Syria, the fall of President Assad, obviously a major and unexpected development. What are some of the few major things that led to that? And what are some things to watch in Syria in 2025?
Yes, that's a very good question, and I would be lying to you if I were to say we know the full story. We don't. There are still questions out there. Why did his forces not fight, or why did his forces got told not to fight? We know that from some Syrian army troops who fled to Lebanon, and they were telling the media, we were told from higher ups to just not fight, to just lay down our arms and get out. And that explains the sequence of events from the fall of Aleppo to the fall of Hama to Homs to Damascus. Those are cities that didn't crumble and didn't fall to the opposition even at the height of the Syrian war. So what happened now, our understanding is just the Assad forces didn't fight, and his backers, mainly Russia and Iran, didn't stand behind their man. So that's the picture that happened all December. But the other elements that we can attribute to his collapse is the Syrian economy has not been doing well at all. You know, the people are fatigued from war, inflation, poverty, unemployment on the rise. Assad's own mistakes in not being able to completely stop the flow of Captagon to the Gulf countries, his own failure in reconciling with Turkey, that all, I think, contributed to what we saw on December 8th. What to look ahead in 2025? It's obviously going to be a very big year for Syria. We know from Ashara recent interviews that he's not gonna rush the writing of the constitution or the elections. He said they're gonna take up to 3 to 4 years, but there are a lot of questions. Can he keep the Syrian mosaic of the cultural mosaic, the political mosaic, bring it together? The opposition is not a monolith. There are liberals, there are Islamists, there's the Kurdish opposition. So there is a lot that would need to be done to keep Syria together. That would be the biggest test. We've already seen attacks and fears from minorities, whether it's the Alawites, Latakia, Tartus, or the Christian community. So that's also going to be something to watch in the coming year. Regionally, it looks like Shara is coming out from the cold. He's getting sort of lukewarm reception from Saudi Arabia, at least, definitely Turkey, but a lot has to be. Many of these countries are waiting to see if he can deliver in unifying the militias under one army, reassuring minorities, and forging a consensual path ahead for the country.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to look at and a lot that could happen in the coming year. In Syria's neighbor, Lebanon, a ceasefire is currently in effect between Israel and Hezbollah, and the parliament will vote on a president next month. How do you see Lebanon in 2025? And do you think that stability is possible there, or is a renewed conflict on the horizon?
Well, Lebanon is also very interesting because it's always in this situation where it's not fully stable, but not in a state of war. And we are in one of these moments this time. The only difference is there is really a big opportunity for Beirut with the Assad fall. I mean, you have to understand that very few people in Beirut will miss Bashar al-Assad. This is a regime that had a strong hold over Lebanon throughout the civil war and until 2005. And with Hezbollah also going on the defensive, there is perhaps an opportunity for Lebanon to just come forward and check some of the political questions that it hadn't been able to address in the last 2 to 3 years. One of them, electing a president. Will they be able to do that? We will see. Next January 9th, there is supposed to be a parliamentarian session to try again. So far, Hezbollah and its allies are not, despite the weaknesses and the pressure and all of that, they're not in a position to fully budge. But we are seeing momentum, backed by Saudi Arabia, backed by the US and others, to just finally get the ball moving on that. We will see if it happens. But there is definitely a unique set of circumstances, an opportunity for Beirut for once to be able to move the needle internally within Lebanon and within Lebanese decision making.
And finally, what are some underreported stories in the region that we should look out for in the new year?
I mean, I think the biggest underreported story, sadly, continues to be the war in Sudan. You rarely see it in major headlines. I know you've covered it, we've covered it at Al Monitor, but this is a story of millions of people being displaced, 26 million in dire humanitarian conditions. The death toll, according to the US, is around 150,000. This is just horrendous. And you don't see it making much of the headlines, in part because it's a civil war and there is no media, anything in the country. So we're hoping that, more attention, both diplomatic, media, and everything would come to Sudan in the coming year. Obviously, there is a fatigue from the war in Gaza, but as you see, the Israelis are advancing in the north. They're pushing people out, so we can't afford fatigue from conflict because these are human stories, and I hope we continue to cover them.
Yeah, agreed. At least, our monitor, we've covered them and we will continue to do so.
For sure.
All right, Joyce, thank you so much for your time and speaking to us again.
Thanks, Adam. Happy New Year.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Please follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the region.